Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I'm going to do the body tag. This tag was created by Brandon's Bookshelf. I will give a link to his video below. And in his video, he tags everyone who wants to do it. So, by default, if you're watching this, you are also tagged if you want to do it. He mentions a book called The Body by Bill Bryson, which talks about how your body functions. And he tried to create a tag that correlates parts of the body to books. And there are 10 prompts. Prompt number 1 is the brain or intellect. And I'm going to choose the origins of consciousness in the breakdown of the bicameral mind. This is a 1976 psychology book. And in here, Jaynes creates an hypothesis that human consciousness developed a lot later than most people think it did. He thinks a lot of early civilizations had humanity, but they were not conscious beings the way we would consider a conscious being. And he goes through a lot of descriptions. And one of those descriptions is early humanity not having consciousness heard auditory hallucinations, which they attributed to gods. And the gods told people what to do when modern humanity would think it out for themselves. And he gives some examples of pre-conscious society and post-conscious society. One of the pre-conscious societies would be found in the Iliad, where gods were speaking and interacting to humanity a lot more. A post-conscious society, in his opinion, was the Odyssey, which basically just focused on one man's journey without all that much conversation with gods, maybe just a little bit for fictional purposes. Another would be in the Bible, one of the very oldest books, Amos. God speaks a lot to his people in Amos, but in Ecclesiastes, not so much. That is humanity thinking about their condition. I'm not sure this book is true. If I were a betting man, I would say I think he's full of bunk, but it is an interesting way to think about the human mind in ways that no one else has thought of before. Prompt number 2, mouth, voice. And I've decided to think about singing. And I don't really know a lot about singing. All the music I listen to is mostly just instrumental. But I have decided to get a book that was originally a huge song, because the Iliad, according to many scholars, was originally sung in pre-literate societies. And so, while it is one continuous poem, this poem in the original Greek was sung. So that is going to be my entry into the voice, because this is sung literature. Prompt number 3, the heart, feeling. Now, there's a couple of different ways you could interpret this. You could interpret it as romance or love for the heart, but I'm going to choose the poems of Rumi, because he really digs into the human condition and feelings and how they think about the world. And his poems are just so intriguing, and he was such a caring human being and caring about humanity and the happiness of humanity. Prompt number 4, the arm, strength. There are two very dangerous professions that humans can get involved in. The most dangerous is fishing. The second most dangerous is logging. And logging takes a lot of physical strength to do that job. So I am coming up with the novel, Sometimes a Great Notion by Kesey. And this is about a logging family out in Oregon, somewhere around the 60s. And it features the Stemper family. And it has the father, Henry, the son, Hank, who is trying to live up to his father's expectations. And then there is the younger son, Leonard, who's kind of bookish, who's being drawn into the logging business. And you will learn just how hard logging is. It is also a difficult read. Kesey has a magnificent style. I'm calling it magnificent, but other people are going to go, that's too hard, because he will switch narrators in mid-paragraph. And if you like that sort of thing, you'll really like this book. But again, it will teach you about the difficulties of logging. Prompt number 5, the elbow, humor. I guess he's talking about the funny bone. And I have picked Flashman by George MacDonald Fraser. It is the first in a series of, I believe, 11 books. They are historical fiction about a Victorian gentleman. Now, he is perceived as a gentleman by Victorian society, but he is a coward, he is a braggart, he has many sexual adventures, and it is absolutely hilarious. You will laugh out loud. However, Flashman is also a bit of a racist, or lives in a bit of a racist society. And his use of racial epitaphs, while common in his day, are considered very bad nowadays. And many people will not find that funny. But it is still a hilarious group of novels if you can overlook his use of racially improper language. Prompt number 6, the stomach, food. Animal, Vegetable, Miracle, A Year of Food Life by Barbara Kingsolver. Now, she is a very well-known novelist, but her family moved from suburban Arizona to rural Appalachia. And they took a challenge upon themselves to spend a year on locally produced diet, growing their own food and buying food from other local farmers, because they're concerned about the environment and the way America has its mass food culture, and how a nation has lost sort of its appreciation for farms and the natural growth and productivity of food. Now, this was a book my wife recommended to me. She read it. She absolutely loved it. I read it. It's a good book. It gets you thinking. It got her much more involved in growing her own food in raised beds and joining a local chicken co-op where we could help raise chickens and get our own fresh eggs. So the book did have a direct effect. It also had the effect of telling me that there is no way in hell I want to continue growing my own food. There is no way in bloody hell I want to raise chickens. If it came to growing my own food or starving, I would choose starvation. I really, really dislike growing food and raising farm animals. but it's still a book that a lot of people should read because it does raise your awareness of how we get our food. Prompt number 7, the Groin romance. This is a prompt that gave Brandon a little bit of pause to think. He chose the word groin. He chose to attribute that to romance, but he says it's still open for interpretation. And his interpretation, he wanted to keep kind of PG. I'm going full bore adult on mine. I'm going The Secret Lives of the Sex Witches by Musidora. Musidora is a pen name for a British woman. And this is a wild, erotic romp. It is about a British woman who is possessed by a sex witch that makes her have lots of sex. And since this is a prompt about the groin, let me tell you that male and female genitalia feature in a bonkers way at the end of this book. Really wild. Prompt number 8, the hands work. I am picking The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. This is the story of the Joad family who has no work in Oklahoma, and they cross the Dust Bowl to California to find more work, and really the work is not that much more plentiful. It has one of the most amazing scenes in literature, I think, of a group of men who are trying to find work, and there is an employer who has work, but not enough for all the men. And he has the men who want work start bidding down their salary. And I don't remember the actual salaries involved in this book. Let's just say the first salary is 30 cents. He has 10 men who are willing to work for 30 cents. And then he has 10 men who will work for 25 cents an hour. And the men start bidding themselves down till they get down to like 5 cents an hour, which is unsustainable. That is not a living wage. But 5 cents an hour on an unlivable wage is better than no cents an hour. So it is just a devastating look at how men need work and can't find work. Prompt number 8, the legs fitness. Brandon chose a book that helped him become physically fit. I am not physically fit. I've never really read a fitness book, but I have chosen a book about an athlete because athletes have to be physically fit to do their sport. And I'm choosing Fat City by Leonard, Gardner. And this is a book about boxing. This is not a sport that I normally follow, but it is a very physically intense sport. It is about Billy Tully, an ex-boxer. It is about Ernie Menger, a young boxer, and Ruben Luna, the manager. And this is not a feel-good story about the rise of a young boxer. This is a very dark and moody look about professional athletes and what athletes have to do to try to succeed in their sport. And frankly, not really succeeding all that well. It's dark, it's brooding, but it's a magnificent novel. Prompt number 10, The Foot Travel. Brandon talked about books about walking, and I'm going to stretch it and to say focus on the travel part, that people can travel in a number of different ways. And I'm choosing a very unusual traveler. My traveler is an ex-president of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, and his exploration down an uncharted river known as the River of Doubt. During those days, when you looked at a map, at the top of a map, you saw a river called the River of Doubt. And then you have a whole big blank space on the map. And down below that, they show another river that empties into the Amazon, parts of the Amazon. And someone said, I bet those two match up. Let's go find out. So an ex-president of the United States went on an uncharted river. No president alive today would even consider that. And Roosevelt is such a huge, amazing character. And as for walking on their feet, there's a lot of portage of boats in the Amazon, because a lot of the Amazon River, you can't sail or drift your boat down those parts. There's rocks and there's falls. So there's a little bit of walking, but it's the travel and the sheer amazingness that an ex-president of the United States would do this kind of traveling. And that is the end of the body tag. Thank you for watching. Keep on reading.